Hello my fragrance friends, it's Kat and I'm back today to talk about caramel fragrances, like dominant caramel fragrances. Now the reason I'm doing this is because in my head playing sort of 24 hours is Sleep Token's newish song Caramel, which I love, as well as their other new releases. I just dropped one today. So I thought it's a perfect excuse to merge two of my loves, fragrances, gourmand fragrances and Sleep Token, and create a caramel themed fragrance breakdown. Now I do want to mention I love caramel as a note. I think being a gourmand lover, it adds something yummy to a lot of fragrances, and there are a lot of fragrances that have it as a note, but it's not its dominant scent. Now, today I want to talk about fragrances that if you want to smell like caramel, these are some options for you. Now, this does overlap a little bit with my last video where I did a more in-depth review of a couple of Paris Corner releases. So I have Molten Caramel here, and also there was Date Caramel. Now, Molten Caramel is the caramel. It is the most peak caramel that you can caramel. So if you did want something that leaves you smelling like salted caramel, this is the one to go for. It lasts quite a long time. I don't think it projects super far, but it'll leave you with a cloud of caramel around you. Now, I did talk about in that video that this has what I would call a distinct popcorn note, and that's because it is a perfume dupe for Sol de Janeiro 71, which is a body spray. It's got macadamia, white chocolate, caramel, blah, blah, and essentially this has that popcorny nutty scent to it, and this is just a more intense version. Both of these will leave you smelling amazing, but there is a bit of a popcorn vibe. If you did want a dupe, and this is harder to get your hands on, that has that same white chocolate, macadamia, caramel scent, but with less salty popcorn, the one by Dua brand is probably my favorite out of the three, but I like this scent profile because I love ooey gooey caramel. Now, do I feel like I've got too much of it? Yes, I do. If it's too intense on its own for you and too cloying and too much, which it can be, for me these are more winter scents, you can definitely layer them. I find that these are so beautiful to layer with like woody scents or even slightly smoky scents or ambery scents. Anything that sort of you could add a little bit of gooey sweetness to it, that's how I like to use these most days, not just straight up smelling like ooey gooey popcorn caramel. One of my handbag fragrances, because again, this is so good for layering. This is a little caramel fragrance oil from Demeter. Now you can buy these in the spray. I personally have found that the fragrance oil roll-ons smell a lot better and last a lot better. This one is pure, like it's like the caramel syrup you put in coffee. So it doesn't smell ooey gooey so much. It just smells very sugary and very sort of artificial caramel. Now, is that for everyone? No, but there is something that's just very yum about it. And again, think of what you could put that type of syrup in, and you can layer it with things like that. You could layer it with citrus scents. You can layer it with coffee scents. So this is one that is a straight up sugary caramel, very cheap, and probably not the best to use on its own, but great for layering, especially a fragrance oil, because you can put the oil down and then layer a fragrance over the top, and it just sort of works really well together and lasts a lot longer. So that is probably my most used layering caramel. Last year when I was on the hunt for some pure caramel fragrances, I ended up buying this one. This is super cheap. I think I got this for like 15 Australian dollars or something from, I think it was, might have been Fragrance Net. I'm not too sure. If I find a link, it's around. This is a French brand, but it's one of those ones that you'd find like really cheap in like a pharmacy or something. But this, look, it's caramel. Let's just say it's caramel and vanilla. If the idea of like a really long-lasting, thick sort of caramel scent is a bit nauseating for you, or you don't want to put money into something because you're like, I don't know if I'm going to like caramel, this one's not a bad option because it's very, very cheap and it's quite light. So this to me smells more like, it's definitely a mix between caramel and vanilla. It's quite a subtle scent and it stays quite close to your skin. So again, if you wanted to add a little bit of sweetness to something, but you didn't want caramel to dominate, this might be a fun one to play with. This is something that I can imagine buying someone who is young and just getting into fragrances and wanting something that's yummy but not too dominating. Is the longevity and the projection, all that kind of stuff great? Not really, but it's fun and cheap. The last two fragrances are very caramel forward, but there's other stuff going on. Now, I wanted to mention Eclaire by Lattafa. So this is a Middle Eastern dupe fragrance for a very popular niche fragrance called Bianco Latte. Now, that's supposed to smell very caramel vanilla-y, very, very just yummy. On me, that one smells very almondy, like really strong almond, which is why I didn't buy it. I tried this dupe and I think this one's slightly nicer in the opening and it doesn't have that 2 or 3 hours of just bombarding me with this almond scent. So I bought this one instead. Now this one isn't a pure caramel scent, but it also doesn't have that really strong almondy opening that I didn't like about the original. I think that was due to coumarin being a note. But this one is quite lactonic, so it's got like praline and milk and sugar and honey. So there's a lot of sort of ooey gooiness going on rather than just caramel. But what I like about this is in the dry down, it almost smells like a vanilla caramel fudge, if that makes sense. So it's not, again, not pure caramel, but it still gives you that yummy caramel vibe with a slight twist. So I like this one. Again, it's a winter fragrance for me because it is quite strong and very long lasting, but a really popular one for a reason. And the last one has a bit of a coffee twist on it. So if you don't want that ooey gooey salted caramel, you want something that's maybe a little bit more coffee date, bit woody, bit ambery. This is by Fragrance World, so another Middle Eastern fragrance, and this is a Coffee Collection Caramel Macchiato. When I first spray this, it's quite strong and a bit bitey, so it's got like a coffee, it's got date, it's got plum, it's got amber. It's a little bit sort of warm and spicy. Sort of reminds me a little bit of a softened version of Camera by Lattafa. But what I like about this is in the dry down, it's predominantly caramel. So it becomes really smooth. And I think the coffee and the other elements just take the, cuts the gooiness a little bit, cuts the sweetness. So this is if you want a caramel, but you're kind of serious with your fragrances and you don't want to smell too edible, but you also want to vibe the caramel. This one's not too bad. I would say let it macerate a little bit because I do find that it, when I first applied it, I didn't like it as much and then it just gets better over time. So that's an interesting one as well. But if caramel fragrances don't do it for you, just go listen to Sleep Token like I'll do now, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.